first on the list is by far the most common lizard, which is the bearded dragon. So these guys need a long enclosure, 4 by 2 by 2 foot is a minimum, but ideally you want to go larger. And then these guys are from the outbacks of Australia, so then you want to provide them with something like sand or a sandy soil mix, something like that. You want to provide them a water bowl, lots of big perches, rocks, branches and so on, for them to get over under their UV and their heat lamp, and obviously an LED spot. Of course, do your research when getting your dragon. These guys are omnivores, so as babies they're going to eat around 80% insects and 20% like leafy greens, and then it's going to swap over as they become adults, so that's something to keep in mind. And these guys do live 10 years, so it is a big commitment if you are getting one, and they do get like 45 to 60 centimeters including their tail, so they are quite a big lizard. Well, not like a big lizard, but they're a moderately like sized lizard. And then of course you want to dust their food with calcium and vitamin powders. That's because in the wild, like all these different things that we're feeding them would have so much more nutrients in them. You just can't do it in captivity, which is why we use supplements to represent that. So yeah. So next on the list is the green knoll. So these guys are more common in the US. They aren't very common here in Britain, but they are quite cheap when they're there. These guys are tropical compared to the bearded dragon, so the minimum size I'd say is a 30 by 30 by 45 for one, but I wouldn't really recommend that because they are active lizards. They are insectivores, so you want to be feeding them things like crickets, locusts, mealworms, things like that, dusting them with appropriate supplements. You want a tropical bedding that retains moisture, fake or live plants, branches, vines, cork bark, places to hide, a water bowl, the basic needs that an animal has, and you want to give them UVB or they will die, and you also want to give them a basking lamp because they do require that. And make sure to change your UV lamp yearly, like any other reptile. And they aren't very good with handling because they're quite skittish, but they are just beautiful green lizards that are fun to watch. They're diurnal, which means they're awake in the day. So yeah, they make quite good first lizards for someone that's away from home. Like I'm not meaning like they're going on holiday all the time, but like they have a job in the middle of the day, or they work from home and so on. So like they're not looking for a handling pet, but they're looking for like a look but not touch pet, if you know what I mean. And these guys do perfectly for that because they're small enough to keep an enclosure that's moderately sized. Of course, give them bigger if you can. And then they're good for someone who wants to watch their pet. So next is the leopard gecko. These guys are also common. These guys are the first crepuscular animals on the list, which means that they're active at dawn and dusk, although they do still require UVB and a heat lamp because they will bask then. And also if you provide a rock stack, then they will sit on the rock stack and warm up when the lights go off. So I definitely recommend that. These guys are from places like Pakistan and Afghanistan in the wild, so you can keep them on more of a sandy substrate, and you can create a nice bioactive one with succulents and different hides and rocks and branches and cork bark. It can look really rustic and cool. These guys are insectivores, so you want to be feeding them appropriately sized insects dusted in calcium and vitamin powders, so that they are basically nutrient rich for your leopard gecko. These guys get around 20 to 25 centimeters including their tail. Their tail's more of a fat one. It's kind of like a camel. When they're in the desert they want to store as much fat as they can, and in the wild these guys live in communal burrows, so I guess you could keep 2 female leopard geckos together appropriately, but I wouldn't really recommend that for a beginner. It's just something to keep in mind of if you are thinking about getting a leopard gecko. And also, the minimum size enclosure is a 3 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure, which is reasonably sized for most people. So they're quite a good, common, easier reptile for a lot of people, which is very good. So blue-tongued skinks are by far the biggest, which means they need a big tank. Something like a 6 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot is the best for them. And then you want an absorbent bedding like cocoa fibre. They're from like Australia and Indonesia, depending on which species you get. You want a basking lamp UV, some rocks for them to bask on, a food bowl with like Arcadia Omnigold, Repashy, Bluey, Buffet, or even dog food or cat food, which isn't the best for them, so I'd recommend the 2 that I just mentioned. And then also you want to provide them hides like cork, bark, different rocks, different levels, different textures for them to climb and sniff around on. And you can also feed them insects and veggies. So they're quite easy for feeding, although they are quite big. So they are quite a good pet for a few people, although they are kind of uncommon. So last on the list is, in my opinion, the best pet reptile, which is the crested gecko. I have done a whole care guide on these. These were my first 2 reptiles. So anyway, you want an absorbent substrate, you want places to climb and hide, so for things like vines, branches, cork, bark, different plants like snake plants I find are really good, wandering Jew, pothos, that sort of thing. Plenty of places are like cork hollows and things. I like to provide them with a UVB. You could use a heat lamp or a heat mat, especially. I choose not to. I think I will use heat mats in the future. You can do bioactive setup. They mainly eat a powdered diet, but I also give them insects, so whether it be cricket, locusts or mealworms. You could also do like things like silkworms and waxworms as treats and so on. But they're quite easy to care for, they're quite easy to handle. You want to spray them down because they are from a tropical area, and then you want a thermometer and hygrometer to check your temperature and humidity are accurate. And the minimum size enclosure is a 45 by 45 by 60 centimetre tank. Of course, go bigger if you want to. I wouldn't really recommend cohabitating, I don't know what the hell you call it, these guys, so especially not males. Do not put males together. You could, if you were wanting to breed them, put a male and a female together for breeding, but then again, experienced keepers would only do that. So I'd recommend just keeping 1 female. You could keep females together, but I wouldn't do that straight away, so I'd recommend just getting 1 crested gecko if it's your first pet.